Welcome back to the crochet tutorial with Cozy Rosie UK, and today I am sharing with you my top tips of how to wash your crochet projects and items. In case we haven't met before, my name is Fiona. I am the designer and hands behind the Cozy Rosie Crochet channel. So over the course of today's video, not only am I going to be sharing with you how to wash your crochet projects, I'm also going to be discussing with you some of the more commonly seen washing symbols or laundry care symbols that you'll see on your yarn bands. And of course, I'm going to be sharing some top tips for selecting the best detergent and conditioners for washing those projects in, along with some other crochet care tips too. So when you leave this video, you are going to feel confident and happy that hand washing is the way forward, but there are times we can get our washing machine involved too. So one of the first places to start is of course going to be your yarn label. There is so much information that is very important to keep hold of whilst you're working on your project and beyond, and this is very much the beyond stage. How do you wash your project? How do you care for it? It's all about how the yarn needs to be cared for, what fibre it's made of, and the yarn band tells you lots of different information. For instance, you can see that this one has a couple of different symbols on there. I'm going to talk you through some of these different symbols that you can see from the 40-degree wash through to those little dashes underneath. What on earth does that iron with a dot mean? And that P, what is that all about? There are many instances where you won't have your yarn band to refer to. Perhaps you made your project a number of years ago, you're not even sure which yarn you used, or perhaps you've been gifted a handmade item and you want to make it last longer. If it is the case that you don't have your yarn label, don't worry, there are some standard ways of caring for our handmade projects that I'm going to run through towards the end of this video that will be appropriate whatever fibre you've used and won't cause any damage to your projects. So let's dive into some of the more commonly seen laundry care symbols that you will see on your yarn labels. First group that we have here are the washing labels. There are some that are really obvious, like that hand. It is for hand washing. You can find a symbol with a cross through that, so hand washing is not suitable. Not sure what example that would be for. But you can see that a normal wash is basically use your own judgment. The washing with a line underneath is a bit of a misnomer because it's saying machine wash synthetic cycle, and that is actually a cycle that's designed for synthetic materials and fibres like acrylic, polyester and that kind of thing. The most common symbol you'll see is probably machine wash with those two lines underneath, and that is designed for a delicate wash. So that's for lacy projects. Even some superwash wools will also have that delicate wash on there. The temperatures are probably more self-explanatory, and now I've seen what those dots mean, I'm a lot happier, because I did not know that one dot meant 30 degrees, two dots means 40, etc, etc. It makes sense now I've seen it, but I was not aware that that's what it meant. The majority of machine detergents are now designed to be used on low temperatures, and from an environmental point of view, we should really be avoiding washing over 30 degrees for anything other than soiled, and I mean soiled, towels and bedding and that kind of thing. Ideally, never go above 30 degrees. I've included a couple of extras at the bottom there. You've got do not dry clean and dry clean. So you'll see on this wall label here, we have a dry clean symbol that also has a P with one line underneath it. So that actually means you can dry clean it with a specific type of solution that they dry clean with. So you wow, I don't know how I can say this. This one is any solvent except trichloroethylene. So therefore it's extra delicate. This yarn is an acrylic wool blend. There's 20% of wool in this yarn, and obviously it can be dry cleaned. So who knew? I've also included the bleach and do not bleach symbols. I'm not sure, unless you're using something that has been terribly soiled, bleach is not really designed. Acrylic yarn colours are permanent, so you can't bleach the acrylic colours out. If you were to use bleach on cotton or natural fibres or animal fibres, then yes, the colour would be displaced with bleach. I'm not sure why anyone would want to risk that on a finished project, but there you go. I'm not even sure you'd actually see those recommendations on the wool anyway. I do recommend taking the time to make a swatch in the crochet yarn or the wool that you're using and washing that on its own. You can check for colour fastness, you can check for how the project is working with that detergent, and it just gives you a little bit more confidence before you throw the whole thing into the washing machine. I am going to put a bit of a disclaimer here. I am not being held responsible for you washing your project after watching this video. It is entirely up to you. Every single washing machine is different. So when it comes to washing, that I do not recommend using a washing machine without the risk of your project being ruined. So that's my little disclaimer. I'm not being held responsible. This is just information for you to go ahead and test out, which is why I do recommend making a swatch of the yarn that you're using and testing that in the machine rather than putting your whole project in. As an ideal rule of thumb, you will be hand washing all of your crocheted items, be it toys, blankets, garments, and on some of your amigurumi projects, you may only be able to spot clean them if they are very well stuffed, although it is possible to dry them afterwards. The best way to hand wash a crochet garment is very simple. You're just going to use a lukewarm water. I use a separate basin just in case there's any residue in my sink. I use a clean hand washing basin. I put in 5 to 10 millilitres of my wool wash and I soak it for 5 to 15 minutes. I drain as much water as I can, and then I would remove any excess soap by rinsing and rinsing and rinsing. That's the bit that takes the time, before laying my project flat on a towel, rolling it up and gently squeezing out any of the excess water. I would never recommend wringing any of your handmade projects. The damage that it can cause to fibre by wringing those projects is just unthinkable. It really is. One of the most important things to think about is choosing the right detergent. When you're looking for the right detergent to wash your project in, always look for a product that has the wool mark on it. That is a universal mark to say that it's suitable for animal fibres, suitable for delicate washing. You might find it on soaps that are marked for silk and that kind of thing. They're still suitable to use as long as it has that wool mark on there. The majority of detergents that have the wool mark are also specifically designed for hand washing, which means that they are quick to dissolve in lukewarm water. They are easy rinse products, which is going to save you a lot of time when you are hand washing. The product that I've most recently used when I was washing my second version of the Strawberry Sundae cardigan was Yooka-Lan Delicate. This has a really gentle fragrance of jasmine, which is one of my favourites. I do grow it in the garden for this reason, because I just simply love the scent. But what I love most about this detergent is it is a no rinse formula. Alongside being great for cleaning your finished projects, it also contains fabric softeners and conditioners that will help your project last a lifetime. If you haven't already tried it, I have popped a link in the description box to go and find out more about Yooka-Lan, along with a little affiliate link to Amazon where you can purchase it for a very good price. You never need a lot of detergent when you're hand washing items. I think you only need 5 millilitres for 5 to 10 litres of water. So these bottles of detergent last a very long time. So of course, once we have washed our project, the next thing to do is to dry it. Now I've got a few symbols here. One of the first two, of course, is to wring or not to wring. We are not wringing our projects at any time because we will cause damage to the fibres in our projects, regardless of what that fibre is. Scrunching and twisting and wringing will change the shape of your finished project. So we do not do that at all. We treat our project with love and care. Some of the other symbols that you'll see here, and more commonly, is the dry flat, line dry. I just included some of these because they're quite amusing, because it just has a line as if it's a washing line. You've got dry flat in shade, shade dry and drip dry. Drip drying is not a recommended thing to do with handmade projects, regardless of what they are. Even if I was drying an amigurumi, I would set the project sat up so that the bottom of the project is sat on something to absorb the water that comes out after a good old squeeze. You can squeeze all the elements to get as much of the moisture out, but then just sit it, reshape it and sit it down somewhere. If you've rinsed your project well and it's really sopping wet, get a couple of towels and do this process a couple of times. You're simply going to lay your project out flat, roll up the towel and squish the towel to get as much excess water out as possible. You can then unroll it, you can repeat the process with another towel if you need to. That really will help the drying process speed up. Always lay any project you can flat to dry, even your jumpers, your sweaters, your cardigans. Position them in the finished shape you want them to be. You can repin and reblock if you need to. You only need to do this a few times. Fibres do take on a bit of a memory. The weight of the water in your project, if you hang it up on a clothes hanger or on the line, it will distort the finished shape of the project. If you leave it to drip dry, lie it flat, put it on top of a towel, so you've got the support all the way across that project. If you're doing it over a clothes dryer, do not just leave it to hang. It will change shape and you will be very disappointed. Once you've laid it out, leave your project for about 12 hours and then you can turn it over, swap out the towel underneath if you need to, and that will allow the other side of the project to dry as well. There is a way of speeding up the process of drying, and it does involve your washing machine. You do need to have quite a specific function on your washing machine, which is the spin cycle. You don't want an all-powerful spin cycle. You might be thinking, how come I can spin my project but I can't wash it in a machine? The spin process is just constantly going round and then it will change directions. Washing is, if you've ever washed your machine, it goes from side to side, then spins round, side to side, then spins round. It's this side to side motion which causes friction in your fibres of your project that will cause them to felt, lint, bobble. We don't want that to happen. However, if you've got a mesh laundry bag, those kind of big mesh bags, you can fit your project in there. Once you've got the initial excess water out, pop it into your laundry bag, pop that bag into your washing machine, set the spin cycle for 800 revolutions or less, let it do its thing, and it will help remove more of that excess water, which really will speed up that drying process. Again, that's said with caution. Every washing machine is different. Just make sure you keep those revolutions low, just to avoid any additional agitation to the material or too much friction. So the final symbols that I'm showing you make me chuckle because it's something I really don't like to do, and I'm talking about the ironing symbols. Now on that first yarn band that I showed you, it did have an iron on it. Again, I find it hilarious because for me, and my recommendation is never, and I mean never, put the naked side of your iron onto any crochet project. Never. Even though this yarn band says I can use a low temperature iron, irons are notorious for not doing what we think they're doing. The temperature of the plate can be so much hotter than we ever imagine. And if you've ever done it, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you have acrylic in your project, you're going to melt it. If you have wool or any other natural fibre, there is still a risk that you're going to flatten your stitches. All that beautiful puffiness that we have in our yarn is going to disappear at the sight of direct heat. So please do not put a bare iron onto your project. Instead, if you really do have a crease that will not come out, I would recommend getting a kitchen towel or a tea towel, laying that over your project, and then using no steam, just heat. Just run that gently over the tea towel with your project underneath. Never have direct contact. You're still at risk of melting your project. You're still at risk of flattening your stitches. But if you cannot shift a crease in any other way, then that would be my only recommendation and the only time to put an iron on a finished project. Yes, I do recommend steaming with an iron, making sure you have at least 1.5 inches to 2 inches gap between your project and your plate of your iron. Irons are so incredibly warm, even when they're on a cool setting, they can cause so much damage, and I would be heartbroken if it happened to me. The fact that I'm talking so passionately, I have ruined a couple of coasters in my lifetime, but that was it, never did it again. So yeah, one last time, do not put an iron, cool or otherwise, onto your crochet project, please. You'll be heartbroken, most definitely. So we've covered quite a lot of information already. The washing process is very, very simple. We're just going to get lukewarm water, 30 degrees or less, a small amount of recommended wool wash marked detergent. We are going to soak for 5 to 15 minutes. Rinse if required. Of course, we can use that Eucalan if we want to, which is a no rinse formula. We are then going to remove the project and dispel as much excess water as possible. No wringing, we're not going to wring our project. We're going to roll, wrap and squeeze. And then if we really need to, we can use a 800 revolution spin cycle in our washing machine, ensuring that project is in a mesh laundry bag. We are not going to iron our projects. We are going to lay them flat to dry. And then we need to store them. Much like the same as leaving a wet project on a clothes hanger or a line, if you leave your crochet cardigan or your sweater on a hanger, you are going to get marks in your shoulder. You are going to stretch and change the finished shape of your project, but specifically where all the weight is pulling down on your project. Ideally, you should be folding and storing your projects away in a closed drawer, not somewhere it can get dusty. I mean, I'm looking over there and seeing 3 projects that should really be in a drawer. So we are human, but ideally they should not be on a hanger, not even folded over a hanger, because the weight will still distort the finished project. Fold them neatly, pop them away, and if you're popping them away for long-term storage, if it has natural fibres in it, you are at risk of moths. I don't know where they come from. They seem to be absolutely everywhere. The recommendation is cedar balls. They are heavily scented, unfortunately, and they smell like mothballs. It's that old lady smell, usually associated with people that wear vintage clothing and who don't rinse them. You can counteract it by including like a lavender sachet. Like if you've got some dried lavender, pop that into a sachet. But I'm not a great fan of the smell of lavender on clothes, so that's not something I would actually do. You can get various other storage sachets to go in with the clothes that are being stored for a long time. But during summer, make sure you've carefully washed your handmade projects. They're completely dry, and then you can store them away safely for the colder months when they return. The final thing to mention is how we banish the bubbles. Now I call them bubbles, pills, piles. I have no idea what the other words are for them. The bubbly bits, usually found under the arms or where lots of friction happens on your fabrics. They are caused by friction, and it's the fibres gathering up and creating a little bubble. Where you wear your bag, crossbody, I tend to get a line down the front of my t-shirts and things like that. There are lint removers, more specifically lint shavers, because you can get lint removers that are just clothes brushes, but lint removers tend to be electric or battery operated, and they shave the top of the fabric effectively, only removing bubbles and bits that are a bit annoying that I like to pick at. Using a lint shaver can bring an old project to life. It will remove the bubbles, the pills, all those little bits, the snaggly bits. Whatever you do, do not ever pull at a loose thread in your project. You can get something called a snag repair tool, and they work by almost felting the snag back into the project. So they are really, really useful. I'll pop a link here for one for you. Pop a link in the description box for you for the one that I have. You can just use a snag repair tool that will push the excess thread or yarn that's come out back into where it should be and pretty much hide it for you, making it invisible. I hope that you are indeed now feeling a little bit more confident about how to care for your crochet items. Most definitely, hand washing is sadly the way forward. Really is worth it for making our projects last a lifetime, and when you've put so much care and attention into stitching them up, I think it's worth showing them a little bit of love when it comes to washing and caring for them. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you in the next video.